What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the 3&D. This week we have a special short episode. We're not going to have the full episode as normal, but we're going to bring you all the information here on the James Harden saga that continues to go down. Make sure you follow the 3&D at the 3&D ETB. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network, and we are back. So James Harden and the Sixers, as everybody knows, and we covered in the last episode, there's a lot of drama going on between Harden, the Sixers, and his future, pretty much. Harden opted into his $36 million player option to play for this season, and he expected to sign a long-term max deal, which apparently Daryl Morey has gone back on, and he is pissed about it. And apparently he talked while he was out in China for one of his basketball camps. He spoke to the crowd and said that as long as Daryl Morey is with the Sixers, he does not want to do business with them. And that's opened the floodgates for a bunch of different talk on James Harden. And some news that broke today, per Woj and Ramona Shelburne of ESPN, the NBA has launched an inquiry into circumstances surrounding James Harden's public admonishing of Sixers President Daryl Morey. They also said many around the NBA believe Joel Embiid will ask out of the Sixers sooner than later, and President Daryl Morey is secretly hoping for a full rebuild. And this is insane news with a team that had championship aspirations just not too long ago, as of the last couple of years. And they had their big duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Simmons got hurt and then had all those issues, and they traded him away and were able to acquire James Harden and try to create a big three with Harden, Harris, and Embiid, and just were not able to do it. And now with the information coming out, they could be looking to trade Joel Embiid, which would be absolutely crazy. And would absolutely shake up things across the NBA. Joel Embiid obviously won the MVP this past season, and the Sixers would go into a full rebuild after nearly a decade of being completely uncompetitive. They were able to acquire a ton of top draft picks, and they created a big duo with Ben Simmons, who was their first overall pick in 2016, and Joel Embiid, who was the third pick, I believe, in 2014. And then they also had the first overall pick in 2017 when they got Markelle Fultz, who ended up being a little bit of a bust when Jason Tatum got selected just a few picks after. But the horizon looks like the Sixers might be going into a full rebuild. They could end up getting a lot for James Harden and Joel Embiid right now. So that's why they may end up striking that. It's absolutely crazy. There more news that broke today too is that Daryl Morey is looking for a bunch of first-round picks in exchange for James Harden. He's not necessarily looking for a player. A lot of people were linking him to the Clippers, and were saying that the Sixers demand Terrence Mann in return for him, but apparently they're not completely sold on Terrence Mann, and they're not dying to demand him into a trade with James Harden. The Clippers were really high on Terrence Mann as well, and they didn't necessarily want to trade him in exchange for Harden. So just makes things a lot more interesting. They were looking for a ton of draft picks for James Harden. They could be looking for even more draft picks with Joel Embiid and possible players that can kind of speed up their rebuild. They've got Tobias Harris still under contract. They have Tyrese Maxey, who they could end up trying to build around. They extended him, and it's just absolutely crazy stuff. It's really insane. This kind of stuff just kind of came out of nowhere too. I mean, Harden and the Sixers, as we talked about in the last episode too, Harden's been doing this with the last three teams that he's been on now. He spent beginning of his career on OKC and then became a household name when he played for the Rockets. When the Rockets traded away Chris Paul, he demanded his way out. He ended up getting to the Brooklyn Nets, and then eventually got frustrated with Kyrie and KD and demanded his way out of Brooklyn. And now he's getting frustrated with the Sixers and demanding his way out of the Sixers. So the NBA is also going to investigate too, because the way that he went about it and kind of calling Daryl Morey and the Sixers out in public is definitely against NBA protocols. I could definitely see him getting fined or even suspended for a period of time for what he did doing that, because you can't He's under contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. He's not allowed to talk about joining other teams while he's under contract. And he's especially not allowed to announce to a bunch of kids in China that as long as Daryl Morey's with the Sixers, he has no business playing for them. Just absolutely crazy stuff. So we're going to see things might heat up even more. We're still waiting on a Damian Lillard trade to see if that actually happens. News came out that the Trailblazers, as of now, are shopping Damian Lillard, but are not going to pull the trigger unless they get something that they really, really want for him. And the high likelihood is that he could end up having to report to training camp in Portland. They may not agree on a deal before the season starts. He may have to start the season in Portland, and eventually something could get agreed upon. But it makes things extremely interesting with the Sixers now too, potentially going into a full rebuild. That opens up the Eastern Conference even more too. You got the Bucks, who are right now at the top of the Eastern Conference along with the Celtics, but the Sixers were right there. And this opens the floodgates for the Knicks, for the Hawks, for a bunch of different teams to start to make a competitive push. The Miami Heat, the Heat ended up winning the East this past year, but it opens more of a future for them, especially if they can acquire Damian Lillard. I think it would be even more interesting. So James Harden and the Sixers, the drama continues, and stay tuned into the Empty the Bench Podcast Network for more shorts like this. We won't have a full episode this week, but we'll be back next Monday for episode 11 of the 3&D. Got a couple of special guests coming on, and we'll start to preview the NBA season as it quickly approaches. So I hope everybody is doing well, and stay tuned into Empty the Bench for more James Harden news and all of the news on some of the NBA's top players and transactions.